An interesting thing just happened. You know that SpaceX was scheduled to launch its latest rocket yesterday on Thursday, and it actually had to delay the launch until Monday. We will hear in a second what Elon has to say about that, but we already see overnight the stock gets hammered, is down 3.92% after it already was down 4% before the launch. Because the markets are a little bit in turmoil, there's a huge retracement from all the AI stocks, including SpaceX. Of course, the semiconductors, everyone is under pressure. Tesla is under pressure, but especially semis. And so here you see the punishment of SpaceX actually delaying a very important launch. But we want to discuss today very briefly what that means for the stock, why it's kind of totally fake news, why it's stupid, but why I'm not surprised at all that this stock is sliding, and why I believe the stock will keep sliding despite being the most important company of our time and despite actually being undervalued. So you can be very fundamentally bullish on SpaceX while also believing the stock is going down. Sounds crazy? I will explain it right now. So first of all, what actually happened here? When we go to SpaceX, to the official X account, we actually see what was happening. They were announcing their latest launch here with this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful video where they announced that they are going to launch the next iteration. And you see here,
fire, as we were transiting the chopstick arms back to a lower position,
you see the flight test. I'm not going to show you the whole video, but
that wants to go to the moon is going to hopefully be. All right, so
we see all these things.
Drain valves for both vehicles, so we have finished to figure out why, and the clock is rolling.
So that is. And you see that they actually.
And we did trigger a hold right at startup there. You saw we got a hold on the booster. So stick with us for a second. Again, to what triggered that abort.
So we had an abort. That's the long story short. Beautiful launch pictures here, but it didn't launch. It was aborted, and we basically had Elon here exactly commenting on this. What happened actually? Some of the engines didn't start, triggering an automatic launch abort. Now offloading propellant, next launch attempt, hopefully in a few days. So very likely next week, okay? And to be confident of a good flight, 2 Raptors will be removed and replaced. Most probable launch timing early next week. They're removing the Raptors here. You see the real pictures, how they remove the Raptors, 2 removed. I'm just joking, of course. It's not dinosaurs powering the rocket. It is engines, and they have, I think, 33. I don't even know how many. 33 of these Raptors, of these Raptor engines in there. I can show you the Raptor engines. They are beautiful, and here are the Raptor engines. This is Raptor 3. So one of these, I think there are 33, I'm not totally sure, in the latest Starship or in this specific Starship. So these are the engines that propel the rocket up. It was aborted because 2 of these Raptor engines initiated some warning that they are not totally functional. And then they aborted the test and they will relaunch again. Now here is why I think, before we go into the stock and what I think happens to the stock, why is this so stupid that the stock drops more after dropping so much? It is stupid, but we'll get in a second why it might not be stupid. But if it drops because of this, it is very stupid, because that is exactly what you want to happen. Okay, you don't want the rocket to blow up. You don't even want the rocket to go to orbit with 2 engines failing, right? That's not what you want. So here's a close-up, by the way, of these Raptors. So you don't want that. You want the rocket and you want the launch to be so intelligent that you have so many sensors that they actually sense any problem before it becomes a problem. For me, the fact that they aborted, that they identified the problem, that nothing bad happened other than a delay is just another reason why I'm so bullish on SpaceX fundamentally and strategically, because that's exactly what you want. Because if you don't do that, I can also show you what happens if you are not able, to do that, then this happens, right? This is the competitor Blue Origin, and they did not identify the problem, and they actually launched, and this is how it looks then. So what do you want? You want this? This is not good. No one got hurt. They know it's dangerous. But this is really bad, okay? You lose your payload, you lose even your pad, your launch pad, you lose everything. With SpaceX, they stopped the whole disaster before it happened, identified the problem, and took the right measures, and everything is fine, and they're going to launch again. I think this is just another proof that SpaceX is ahead of the game and that they're very, very good at their job. Now, here is the problem. Here is the problem that I repeatedly told everyone, that when you look at SpaceX stock, okay, we look at SpaceX stock, we look at what the latest is. SpaceX is just tactically overvalued. You see this giant drop here when the launch got delayed. Super stupid. It's now way below the actual IPO price of $135. The problem is it's still at $1.7 trillion at roughly maybe if they're lucky at 11 billion profit for this year. Run rate. It's not even clear if they get 11 billion profit. Let's say 10 billion. Okay, at 10 billion, that's a pretty high multiple of 170 price earnings, you know, similar to Tesla. And the problem here is that we are in a market that is absolutely slaughtering stocks that have tremendous earnings. You know that Micron Technology, for example, and SK Hynix, the RAM manufacturers that are totally in a secular bull market, and people are talking about cyclicals and everything, they are getting murdered. Their price earnings ratios are actually down to 7 or 8 forward price earnings, which is insane, or even lower than that, depending how you exactly count it. Hey, on this channel, we do something very important. We deeply analyze, understand, and predict capital, AGI, and politics. Not just to beat the markets and make a lot of money, even though that's important, but also to build a new society and make the future good for all of us, the pioneers. If you want to help me on this journey, you can do that by doing a very simple thing: like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. Here we have still 170 price earnings. Maybe forward, depending where we are ending at, maybe it's 90 forward, right? If they're double earnings next year. You know, if you triple it, okay, maybe it's 60, but it's not 8. And that is the problem with SpaceX. The problem with SpaceX, as I elaborated on before, is very simple. That SpaceX on a strategic level is in a market right now that hates everything, that is punishing NVIDIA, Micron, and SK Hynix and others, tremendously profitable companies with insane growth rates that are much higher than SpaceX's growth rate. And SpaceX can only keep the stock price up there in a market that actually gives you some credit for the future, and they're not even giving you credit for the present. And so that is the problem why I'm not bullish on SpaceX as a stock in the short term. But why I'm extremely bullish on SpaceX in the long term, which opens up this great opportunity of waiting for it to drop a little bit more. There are also tons of unlocks coming, of share unlocks where people are allowed to sell their shares, which is not a good thing, in case you didn't know. So a lot of SpaceX shareholders are now allowed to unlock their shares in the next 6 months, all the way into November, and that will create more selling pressure. Right now we have only 5% of SpaceX shares are currently floated, are available to trade, and we will get another 60% or 55% into the market by November of all the people who were in the stock before when it was private, who are now allowed to actually sell it, and that will create increasing selling pressure on SpaceX. So that is clearly a downward pressure in a market that right now looks horrible. The market looks horrible, not SpaceX, the market. And the only thing that might offset further severe dropping of SpaceX, the only thing that might offset this is what Brian Wang is focusing on a lot in his analysis, that we see Colossus 2 and 3 coming up, and it is, in my opinion, more likely than not that they will actually launch very large data centers in the next 3 months, maybe in the next 6 months, in the next 3 months probably, and will announce major deals coming in that increase cash flow. But will that news, that will definitely be a strong catalyst for the stock upwards, but will it offset this downward pressure, downward selling pressure or not? No one knows. That is the big question we have to figure out. Unlocks and selling pressure. Let's see if we can find that on X. There's some very, very good, summaries here of these overviews. Lock-up periods here, you see. Look at this. That is the problem here. That is the problem. You see these unlocks coming. Here's the IPO, right? Early release eligible begins. And then you see all that stuff. Here's the last big leap, okay? So these are all the percentage shares that are getting basically unlocked. They say it's 40% here. Elon just next year, in 1 year, this is the next big leg up. But by November, you see, well, right now they're counted a little weird. Total shares outstanding, how many of them are getting unlocked. So we are ending up at 50% or something. We are currently at 5%. So it's a 10x amount of shares that are coming into the market. Don't underestimate the mechanics of the stock market. I mean, even if we have the greatest company in the world, that is happening. And then, of course, some smart people say charts like this that are very, very abstract. You can't just apply that. But independent of that, why I believe if here is probably Q1 of 2027, okay, I think we have the slide down before us. I think the only reason it might not slide down all the way to 70 or something, by the way, on a revenue multiple level, if you would basically take the market cap and apply the Tesla revenue multiple to SpaceX. So if you price the stock the same way as a multiple of revenue, you price Tesla, SpaceX should be at $35. Then it would be valued as Tesla with the revenue multiple. Of course, you could argue SpaceX has much more cash flow coming in short term with Colossus and something, so maybe you can double that to 70, but then you end up with 70 as a stock price target. That's the problem here. And to actually get this forcing function in that drives SpaceX up, you would need massive amounts of cash coming in. I think Colossus 2 and 3 might deliver major cash short term, but then the growth of these will be discounted by the market in the current environment anyway. But even if you get more bullish, they will discount and say, well, that's good news. We get massive amounts of earnings in short term, but there will not be a Colossus 4 and so on because terrestrial compute build out comes to a grinding resistance now with all the political backlash and the energy shortcuts and stuff like that. So I am tactically very bearish on SpaceX. I remain bearish even at that price because look at the valuation. It's still massively higher valued than Tesla. And I don't know if that's justified if you compare it with the semiconductors that drown in cash. Look at Micron. How do you keep that stock up? That's the problem. However, I do believe Colossus is coming. So we will see tens of billions of additional profit coming in. Will that be enough to get the stock back up to 180 or something? I am not sure. Even then, I'm not sure. And the big run-up requires AI compute satellites. Then the stock can go to the moon. It can go to 300, 400, 500, 1,000, 10,000. It doesn't matter at that point. I do believe that this point in time will come sooner than people believe in 2028. And I think signs of that, maybe sufficient signs for a big rally, will be there in H2 in the second half of 2027. The problem is we are now in the second half of 2026. That is why I'm short-term not bullish. I think the launch, the delayed launch and the drop we saw today is not really the big story here. The story behind it is more that the stock has nothing to keep it up right now. That's the problem. So anything like that will drop it. And if the launch is successful on Monday or Tuesday, maybe it goes up another 3%. But this stock will have a very hard time rallying very hard. The only real catalyst that I see, it's not Starlink, it is not these launches, it is not even Starship being reusable, because it's all pie in the sky stuff. Not that I don't believe in the pie in the sky, it's clear proof that they will make infinity money. But look at the market right now, they don't care about the future. They don't even care really about the present. It's a tough situation. And so the only thing that will truly send the stock to the moon is once AI satellites start to work at scale, and we are talking about at least 100 megawatts. That is when the real thing kicks in, and then we're off to the races. And if that happens, let's say in 2028 or second half of 2028, you can also believe that in the second half of 2027, maybe 1 year ahead, the market will wake up to it. Or not wake up, they know that, but they're waiting for that point. That is my take on this. And that means tactically, it's a beautiful stock. You want to be in that stock, but I think I'm going to wait much longer until end of the year, minimum December, before I initiate positions here. That is my take on it. I hope that was interesting, and see you very soon.